My vacation began as a relaxing trip to the beach and turned into sensory overload. The sights, the sound, the smells. Must have pizza. Tasty.
When Shireen said sensory overload, she wasn't kidding. She might not have realized it, but she needed all of her senses to soak up this much fun.
Oh, I get it. Sensory has to do with our senses.
Exactly. In fact, we use all our senses all the time, even when things aren't quite so exciting.
That really was fun. There was so much to do. I guess I really was using my senses a lot on that trip.
Yep. Shireen, like all of us, has 5 senses. Let's see if she can name them all.
Well, there's sight, smell, and taste. Hearing, and I know, touch. Those are my senses. Piece of cake.
That's right. And each of your senses works in a very cool way to collect information about the world around you and send it to your brain. They help you know if you're smelling a flower or a skunk, whether you need to wear a heavy coat or just a sweater, and if you're eating a pickle or a piece of cake. And sometimes your senses help you know when it's time to eat.
Shireen, dinner's ready.
Right now, Shireen is using all of her senses. But what exactly do your senses do? How do they work? Let's take a look. Special tiny threads called nerves spread throughout your body. Everybody has millions and millions of nerve fibers.
That's a lot of nerve.
It sure is. And you understand what's going on around you thanks to your nervous system. Not that kind of nervous. We're talking about the nervous system, the incredible network of nerves that connects your brain to every other part of your body. Our sense organs are eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin are able to send messages to the brain from special nerves called sensory receptors. You already know that sensory means your senses. And if you think receptor sort of sounds like receiver, you're right. And it works kind of the same way. Like when you catch a ball, you receive it. Then you can pass the ball along to someone else. Sensory receptors receive information from the outside world and pass it along to the brain. Your brain can then send instructions about what to do based on the information it has been given.
Shireen, dinner's ready.
Pretty amazing, huh? First, let's talk about the sense of touch. Chances are that whatever you're doing right now, you are touching something. The sensory receptors in your skin are always sending information back to your brain about what you are touching. Your skin has 3 groups of receptors: touch and pressure receptors, hot and cold receptors, and pain receptors. When you touch something or something touches you, your touch and pressure receptors go to work. There are lots of sensory receptors in our lips and fingers.
Try this! You'll need your notebook and a pencil, some thick gloves, a blindfold, a stopwatch, and some everyday objects like these. Now put on the gloves. This covers up the touch receptors in your hands. The challenge will be to figure out what you're touching through the gloves. And you'll need to be blindfolded too. No using your sense of sight to help out. Okay, first object. Start the timer and see how long it takes to figure it out. Without the use of the sensory receptors in your hands, it's hard to answer even the easiest questions like, is it soft or hard, smooth or rough, what shape is it? Try it with lots of different objects and record the results in your notebook. Now try holding some objects in your bare hands. How quickly can you guess now? Of course, you'll find that it's much easier to tell what the objects are without the gloves. But why?
Wait, I know. Because with the gloves on, the sensory receptors in our hands are mostly feeling the gloves. So that's what gets sent back to your brain.
Right, but without the gloves, the receptors are sending more information about the actual objects.
Your skin has hot and cold receptors that send your brain messages about how cool or warm it is around you. This allows us to decide what kind of clothes to wear or how much to heat or cool our homes. Your body is also able to adjust its temperature based on the information your brain gets from your hot and cold receptors. The third kind of touch receptor tells your brain about pain. Pain receptors let you know when something might harm you. They keep you out of hot water. Pain receptors also let you know you're hurt, like from a cut or a broken bone, so you can get help. Just think, if you didn't feel pain, you might never know you need to go to the doctor. Every second of every day, touch receptors in our skin are sending signals to our brain. So now that you know all about touch receptors, keep in touch.
Try this. You'll need ice water, warm water around 45 degrees Celsius, 113 degrees Fahrenheit, a blindfold, some cotton tip swabs, and a willing subject. Your mission? To test which parts of our bodies have more hot and cold receptors. First, blindfold your partner. Now dip one swab in each glass of water and take turns touching them to different places on the skin. And be sure to use a different swab each time. Ask your partner to say cold or hot based on what he feels. Make a chart and list all the places you try. Back of the hand, wrist, cheek, lip, and record your partner's answers. Can you tell which spots have more hot or cold receptors? Talk about why you think different places on your body would be more sensitive to heat or cold.
Where would Shireen be without her sense of taste?
Me? I have impeccable taste. Thank you very much.
One thing's for sure, eating would be pretty boring because there would be no flavor. The sensory receptors we use to taste things are called taste buds. These little guys are pretty picky customers, and they help you recognize which foods you don't like and the ones that you do. Taste buds are actually tiny bumps on your tongue that help you identify the taste of different foods. You have about 10,000 of these taste receptors on your tongue. And all taste buds are not alike. Your tongue actually has 4 types that are sensitive to specific tastes, but they're not all in the same place.
Try this! You'll need a little bit of the following foods: salt, lemon juice, sugar or honey, and something bitter like strong tea or vanilla. You will also need 4 markers to represent each of the 4 foods and some cotton swabs, and you should have an adult nearby to help you. Here's the question: can your taste buds really tell the difference between different flavors? First, make a drawing of your tongue in your body journal, sort of like this. Now, try and sense on your tongue where each food tastes strongest. When you find it, mark the spot on your diagram with one of the colors. Try it with all 4 samples, using a different color marker for each. Soon you'll have a map showing where all your different taste buds are located.
Sour tastes are picked up by the taste buds on the sides of your tongue. Sweet and salty taste by the taste buds closer to the tip of your tongue. The back of your tongue is where your bitter buds are found. That's why sometimes the last thing you may taste is a bitter aftertaste from certain foods or medicine. Ever tried raw vanilla?
Whoa, bitter. How can something that smells so good taste so bad?
It's not always that way. In fact, the way something smells and even the way it looks usually gives us clues about how it will taste. Our brain uses this information to tell our taste buds what to expect.
That's me and my friend Kelly. I was testing her with different kinds of smells.
Whether a beautiful flower or dirty old sneakers, just about everything gives off some type of smell.
Whoops, I guess that wasn't a very nice smell.
Smells enter your nose when you breathe and are sent inside to your smell receptors located behind your eyes. Each of us has more than 10 million smell receptors. And just like all the receptors we've seen, they send information to your brain. From there, the brain checks through its smells on file and decides what it is you're smelling. So whether it's a cherry pie or something not quite so pleasant, your brain is hard at work helping you to identify the smell. Your brain can remember thousands of different smells, even if we're not seeing the thing we are smelling. You can even remember smells that may signal danger, such as the smell of smoke that could mean fire. Now hear this! Your sense of hearing is incredible. From whispers to sirens, from scraping to singing, it makes sense of sounds and can even tell them apart when you hear a lot of different ones at the same time. How does it work? Imagine a calm pond on a still day. Tossing a stone into the pond sends waves across the surface of the water. In a way, the air around you is like the calm water in the pond. When it is disturbed by a sound waves spread out into the air, just like the waves in the pond. When those sound waves reach your ear, it's just the start of an incredible journey. What you probably think of as your ear is really just part of your outer ear. It acts kind of like a funnel, guiding the sound waves inside toward the eardrum, which is like a thin piece of skin that's stretched tight like a trampoline. Sound waves hit the eardrum, which vibrates, sending those vibrations into the middle ear. Here they pass through the tiniest bones in your whole body, and finally into the inner ear.
Wait a minute. Shouldn't we be seeing some sensory receptors here somewhere?
Good point. And here they are in your inner ear. These tiny hair-like nerves are receptors. When a vibration reaches them, they wiggle. This sends a sound message to your brain. If the vibration is small, the nerves wiggle just a little, and the brain knows that the sound is soft. If the vibration is big, they wiggle a lot. Extremely loud sounds like these can cause too much vibration inside your ears and damage them. Think about how many sounds are happening around you right now. How can you hear all these sounds at once? Well, it's because you have 25,000 of those tiny receptors in your inner ear. Each one is able to recognize a different sound. Okay, time for the last of our 5 senses, sight. Just think of all the things we can see at one time. We learn an awful lot about the world around us by using our eyes. But there's something our eyes need to allow us to see even the simplest things. Any ideas what it is?
I know. Light.
That's right. Without light, our sense of sight would be totally in the dark. Take a close look at your eye and draw what you see. That colored part of your eye is called the iris. The small dark hole in the center of the iris is called the pupil. Light bounces off whatever you're looking at and enters your eye through this hole. By opening and closing, the iris controls the amount of light entering your eye. They may be blue, green, brown, or gray, but every iris works the same way. Light enters your eye in the front and travels straight back until it hits the sensory receptors on the back of your eye. These receptors are called rods and cones.
Cones? Is that like ice cream cones?
Well, not quite. They're called rods and cones because of how they look under a microscope. Our eyes have about 2/3 of all the sensory receptors in our whole bodies. More than 100 million in each eye.
Whoa!
When light hits these rods and cones, they send messages to the brain through the optic nerve. Your brain takes all the information and makes sense of the image you're viewing. Cones help you see things in bright light and to see colors. Helping you see in dim light and detecting movement is the job of the rods. Dogs have more rods than people do, so they can see better in dim light and have an easier time tracking movement. But dogs do not have as many cones as people do, and so cannot see colors as well.
Here's a question for you. Why do we have two eyes? I mean, they both work the same way, and they're both pointed in the same direction.
Good question. And you're right. Both eyes work the same way, and they see pretty much the same things. But each eye sees things from a slightly different view. Your brain combines the two different views so it's easier to tell how far away things are, and so that you don't walk around seeing double. Sometimes our eyes send confusing signals to our brain. Check this out. Do you see two faces in this picture? Or a vase? Stare at the spinning disc, and the spirals seem to get bigger. But if you keep looking, does the picture start to change? Let's do a fun experiment to show how your eyes can sometimes fool your brain.
You'll need a cardboard tube and a book. Look through the tube with one eye. Now slowly move the book until it's just next to the tube. Yikes! My book has a hole in it. What's going on? There's not really a hole in your book. It just looks that way because your brain uses a picture from each eye to make one picture. So when it puts the hole from the tube together with the book, it looks like you can see right through the book.
Sometimes one or more of our senses doesn't work properly, and maybe not at all. Over the years, scientists and inventors have come up with simple ways to help our senses, like eyeglasses and hearing aids. We use our senses of hearing and sight to communicate with each other. People who can't hear are able to talk to others with their hands by using sign language. In this way, the deaf use their sense of sight to communicate. Many TV shows put the words on the screen so that people who can't hear them can read them. And blind people can use a special alphabet called Braille. They actually feel small bumps with their fingertips, using their sense of touch to read what they can't see with their eyes. Technology has also played an important role in expanding our senses. Microscopes and magnifying glasses help us to see things not visible to the eye. So, we've learned that our senses all depend on sensory receptors to gather information about the world around us. But here's an important thing to know about our senses. As people get older, they have fewer and fewer sensory receptors in their bodies.
Wait a minute. If people don't have as many receptors when they're older,
Then that means their senses don't work as well, right?
That's right. You may have noticed that some older folks don't hear as well as you do. And it's the same with the other senses. That may help explain why you sometimes look at things very differently than your parents or grandparents.
I never thought of it that way.
Little did I know my five senses were working overtime to absorb every precious moment of my trip to the boardwalk. Touch, taste, smell, hearing, and sight.
And we can't forget our sense organs: eyes, ears, tongue, skin, and nose. Okay, so you know what your senses are, but what did you learn about your senses today?
Well, mostly I think I learned that all our senses work pretty much the same way. They all use sensory receptors to collect information and send that information to our brain.
Right. And I guess I was surprised to find out that even though there's a lot happening all around our bodies, none of it would make any sense without the brain.
Oh, I get it. No brain, no senses.
It's true. And if you had no senses, there wouldn't be much to talk about. So it's a good idea to take care of them. The healthier you are, the better your senses will work.
There's so much to explore in the world.
And we can enjoy it all with our senses.